So we will start from here. Okay. So we will start with child's pose. Please come onto your mat in child's pose and inhale and exhale deeply. Keep inhaling, keep exhaling. Try to sit at the top of your heels as much as you can. Now take your right hand underneath your left hand and press yourself onto the mat. Now take your left hand underneath your right hand. Keep doing Ujjayi breaths. Inhale from your nose and exhale from your mouth. Sit up and look backwards. Give your spine a good stretch. Now come into a tabletop position and we will do 5 inhale and exhale in cat and cow stretch. Inhale, cow stretch. Exhale, cat. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale all the positivity. Exhale all the negativity. Inhale all the positivity. Exhale all the negativity. Inhale. Exhale. Make a dome of your spine. One last time. Inhale. Exhale. Now inhaling, go into a puppy pose. And stretch yourself as deep as you can onto your mats. Now come up and we will do ragdoll. Right to left. Sit back. Come up. Inhale right to left. Exhale, sit back. Come up. Inhale right to left. Exhale, sit back. Inhale right to left. Exhale, sit back. Inhale right to left. Exhale, sit back. Relax. Now on the other side. Inhale left to right. Exhale, sit back in child's pose. Come up. Inhale left to right. Sit back in child's pose. Inhale left to right. Exhale back. Inhale left to right. Exhale, sit back. One last time. Inhale left to right. Exhale, sit back. Inhale, gaze forward. Exhaling, we go into downward dog. Walk your feet if you can. Please keep walking your feet. Stay in the posture. Once again. Inhale, gaze forward. Come down into baby cobra. Look up. Keep taking deep inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhaling, come up into upward dog. Inhale from your nose, exhale from your mouth. Take the victorious breath. Ujjayi. Inhale, gaze forward. Exhaling, go back into downward dog. Walk your feet. Inhale, gaze forward. Exhaling, come into runner's lunge on your right foot. Look up. Exhaling, sit down into half pigeon pose on your right foot and bend yourself down towards the mat. Inhale, gaze forward. Exhaling, go into downward dog. Walk your feet. Inhale, gaze forward. Exhaling, come into left leg runner's lunge. Take a deep stretch. Deep inhale and exhaling into half pigeon pose and tuck down onto your mats as deep as you can. Come up, look back. Now you can sit in either Sukhasana or Padmasana, whichever pose you are most comfortable in. Put your right foot on your left leg and left foot on your right leg. Take deep inhale and deep exhale. Inhale from your nose, exhale from your mouth. Inhale from your nose, exhale from the top of your head. Inhale from your nose, exhale from all over your body. Try to find that spot which is hurtful to you right now and focus on it. Exhale from that point. Now rub your palms and put it on your eyes gently and press them. Press your eyes, your cheeks, Now press the temples of your head gently. Press your forehead. Press the middle of the brows, your third eye. Press your ears. Gently pull them down. Press the surrounding area around your ears. Press your jaws, your mouth, nose, your eyes once again, your eyebrows. Press the top of your head. Press the back of your head, your neck, your shoulders, your full hands, your fingers, your legs, your feet, the middle of the foot. Once again, press your eyes, your cheeks. Take a deep inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Last time. Bring your hands to the heart center and bow down to the Mother Earth and thank her for this beautiful day. Namaste. So, how are you guys feeling? Are we ready? Great. So, I'm going to talk about the human development today. But before that, let me ask a couple of questions from you. The last time you saw a relative or friend whom you had not seen for a while, perhaps you remarked on how much or how little the person has changed. Perhaps you probably saw a child and you may have said, ABC has grown so much since the last time I saw her. Or if you have met an older person, you would have said, Uncle Sam looks much more frail than he did at Grandpa's birthday party. Such comments suggest that we humans are natural observers of the ways in which we change with age. But we also notice characteristics that seem to stay the same over time. We might say ABC's always been such a sweet child, or Sam's mind is as sharp as ever. And our powers of observation don't stop with simple descriptions. We also come up with theories to explain our observations. Perhaps you have said something like ABC's parents are great role models. That's probably why she is so well behaved. Or you would have said something like Grandpa and Uncle Sam are both pretty sharp for their age. I guess they have good genes. What do these observations suggest? What do you think? They suggest a developmental pathway that each person follows results from the person's own characteristics, the choices that others make for her or him in childhood, and the decisions that they make for themselves in adulthood. These interactive effects are the driving theme behind anybody's life's progress. There is this field of human development, and in the scientific study of this field related to age related changes that occur in a person in behavior, in thinking, in emotion, and personality. They study everything about a person related to its age and how he changes in terms of its behavior, thinking, emotion, and personality. So, now I will ask you like what ideas about development do you think the philosophers and the scientists proposed in olden days? Early philosophers based their ideas about development on spiritual authorities, general philosophical orientations, and deductive logic. What happened in 19th century though, people who wanted to better understand human development, they they wanted more turned to science. They wanted to know how is science related to human development? How can science prove the changes that a person is going through over a period of time with aging? Well, typically philosophers' inquiries into the nature of development focused on why babies who appear to be quite similar grow up to vary widely. They vary they were particularly concerned with the moral dimensions of development. For example, the Christian doctrine of original sin, often attributed to 4th century philosopher Augustine of Hippo, taught that all humans are born with a selfish nature. And if you want to reduce the influence of this inborn tendency towards selfishness, Augustine taught humans must seek spiritual rebirth and submit themselves to religious training. From his perspective, developmental outcomes, both good and bad, result from each individual's struggle to overcome an inborn tendency to act immorally when doing so somehow benefits only the self. But in 17th century, there was an English philosopher, John Locke. He made a broad philosophical approach which was called as empiricism. And in this approach, he claimed that the mind of a child is a blank slate. Empiricism is the view that humans possess no innate tendencies and that all differences among humans are attributable to experience. The blank slate view suggests that adults can mold children into whatever they want them to be. It was from here that the nature and the nurture debate arose. Well, he further said that differences among adults can be explained in terms of differences in their childhood environments rather than as a result of a struggle to overcome any kind of inborn tendencies. Well, this was the original sin which we just spoke about. Now, there was another view on this which was called as innate goodness. And this view said it was basically done by a Swiss philosopher, Jean Jacques Rousseau. He claimed that all human beings are naturally good and seek out experiences that help them grow. Rousseau basically believed that children need only nurturing and protection to reach their full potential. Developmental outcomes are good when a child's environment refrains from interfering in her attempts to nurture her own development. Now, in contrast, outcomes are poor when a child experiences frustration in her efforts to express the innate goodness with which she was born. Thus, the innate goodness and original sin approaches that we just spoke about share the view that development involves a struggle between internal and external forces. In contrast to both, the blank slate view sees the child as a passive recipient of environmental influences. You see the difference between all these three approaches of the various three philosophers, and I'm going to prove it further in my discussion that which one stood true finally. So in 19th century there was an explosion of interest in how scientific methods might be applied to questions that previously had been thought to belong within the domain of philosophy. Like, everybody must have heard about Charles Darwin, for example, and he became very well known for his suggestion that the wide variety of life forms that exist on the earth evolved gradually as a result of the interplay between environmental factors and genetic processes. Darwin proposed that studying children's development might help scientists better understand the evolution of the human species. And he even went to the extent that Darwin and other colleagues, his like minded scientists, kept detailed records of their own children's early development. And those are called as baby biographies. And basically, they were hoping of finding evidence to support the theory of evolution. And those were the first organized studies of human development. So there were a lot of questionnaires prepared. There were a lot of interviews done of all their children, and there was this term used that it was he thought that developmentalists should identify norms. Basically, they were trying to find some kind of norm, or excuse me, let me drink some water. So basically, they were trying to identify some norms or average ages at which developmental milestones are reached. So, norms could be basically used to learn about the evolution of the species as well as to track the development of individual children. Now, there was another term that was also used, which was known as maturation. There was this other scientist called Giselle. He used the term maturation to describe such a pattern of change. Basically, it was said that maturationally determined development occurs regardless of practice, training, or effort. For example, let me give you an example on this. Infants don't have to be taught how to walk because of the strong belief that many important developmental changes are determined by maturation. This scientist, which I just spoke about, he spent decades studying children and developing norms by keeping a track of their behaviors. So, initial study on human development only happened on babies or small children. Now, what is the lifespan perspective that I want to talk to you about? So, psychologists once thought of adulthood as a long period of stability followed by a short span of unstable years immediately preceding death. This view has changed because, for one thing, it has become common for adults to go through major life changes. It could be anything, it could be a career shift or a downfall, or who knows, a divorce. So these are all like major life changing occurrences. There has also been a significant increase in life expectancy in the industrialized world. I will tell you some facts. Like, in the beginning of 20th century, Americans expectancy at birth was only 49 years. By the century's end, the expected lifespan of someone born in United States was about 76 years. As a result, older adults now constitute a larger proportion of the US population than ever before. In fact, adults over the age of 100 are one of the most rapidly growing age groups in the industrialized world. Look at Japan. The changes outlined here have led to the adoption of the lifespan perspective. So, the idea basically is the important changes that occur during every period of development, and that these changes can be interpreted in terms of culture and in terms of context in which they occur. So, it is very important to understand the changes in adulthood as well. It is not just the changes that a child goes through, it is also the changes that an adult goes through in his adulthood. So the inputs from many disciplines became necessary to fully explain the human development. There were many concepts that came up in this, like the plasticity concept. So what does plasticity means? It is like individuals of all ages possess the capacity for positive change in response to environmental demands. What is interdisciplinary research? So there was research from different kinds of disciplinary perspectives, and which was then accumulated to fully understand lifespan development. There was also this multi contextual nature of development, as in individual development occurs within several interrelated contexts. For example, family, neighborhood, culture. So there were too many authors and scientists and researchers who worked on it. And there was this other scientist called Paul Baltes. He presented a very important finding in lifespan development, like the human development. He pointed out that as human beings age, they adopt strategies that help them maximize gains and compensate for losses. And he studied this on this pianist called Arthur Rubinstein, who was able, he's one of the greatest players, like the pianist, great, one of the greatest concert pianists in the world. You can Google him. And he's Polish. He was able to outperform much younger musicians even in his 80s. So when he was asked that how was he able to do that, he said that he maintained his performance capacity by carefully choosing pieces that he knew very well, and by practicing them more frequently than he had at earlier ages. So, because in his later ages, he lost his eyesight and his memory, so he was basically compensating for the physical losses associated with his age by practicing the pieces which he already knew and he was good at. So he was very selective in playing his piano pieces in the concert. So this was one theory that was given by Paul Baltus, and in which he said that people adopt strategies as they age to help them maximize gains and compensate for losses. So, what do you think? What do you think? How do people develop themselves, and how do they grow themselves over a period of time, and how do they adapt? How do they learn? And how do they become better among their peers? If you have any thoughts, you can write those in the chat. So, what major domains and periods do developmental scientists used to organize their discussion of the human lifespan? So, there were scientists who studied age related changes, often grouped them in three broad categories, like the domains of development. There is this physical domain, which includes changes in the size, shape, and characteristics of the body. For example, developmentalist scientists studied the physiological processes associated with puberty. Also included in this domain are changes in how individuals sense and perceive the physical world, such as the gradual development of depth perception over the year of life. Changes in thinking, memory, problem solving, and other intellectual skills are included in the other domain, which is called as cognitive domain. Researchers working in the cognitive domain found that found a lot of study topics and found it to be as diverse as how children learn to read and why some memory functions deteriorate in old age. They also examined the ways in which individual differences among children and adults, such as intelligence test scores, are related to other variables in the domain. Now, the third domain, the first was physical domain, in which the size, shape, and characteristics of the body of a person was studied over a period of time. The second was cognitive domain, which basically studied the thinking, memory, problem solving, and other intellectual skills. And the third is the social domain. It includes changes in variables associated with the relationship of an individual to others. For example, studies of children's social skills fall into the social domain, as does research on individuals' differences in personality. Individuals' belief about themselves are also usually classified within the social domain. Now, social domain classifications help to organize discussion of human development a lot. And the three domains do not function independently. That has to be always remembered. For instance, when a girl goes through puberty, a change in the physical domain, her ability to think abstractly, which is a cognitive domain, and her feelings about potential romantic partners, which is a part of the social domain, changes as well. So, all three domains work with each other. Now, there is also this concept of periods of development. So, first of this is the prenatal period, and it is the only one that has clearly defined biological boundaries at its beginning and end. It begins at conception and ends at birth. That is the prenatal period. The next period is the infancy. It begins at birth and ends when children begin to use language to communicate, which becomes a milestone that marks the beginning of early childhood. While infancy begins at birth for all children, it ends the end point can vary from one child to another. A social event, the child's entrance into school or some other kind of formal training, marks the transition from early to middle childhood. Consequently, cultures vary to some degrees with regard to when early childhood ends and middle childhood begins. For example, children must be enrolled in school beginning at age 4 in Scotland, but not until age 8 in a few states in the United States. Now, a biological milestone. Let's talk about puberty. Signals the end of middle childhood and the beginning of adolescence. Again, the timing of this transition varies across individuals. And when does adolescence end? Now, one way of answering this question is by noting the legal boundaries that different cultures set for the end of adolescence and the beginning of early adulthood. I'll give you one example. A person must be 18 years of age to join the military without parental permission in United States. But the age of majority for military service is 15 in Laos, 16 in the United Kingdom, 17 in Nicaragua, 19 in Algeria, 20 in South Korea, 21 in Brazil, and 22 in Afghanistan. Even within a single culture, such as the United States, legal adulthood is defined differently for different activities. For example, 16 for driving, 17 or 18 for criminal accountability, 18 for signing contracts, 21 for buying alcohol, and 24 for economic independence with regard to college financial aid. Such variations highlight the social and psychological rather than biological nature of the transition to adulthood, the complexities of which have had led such or few researchers to propose a new period of development called emerging adulthood. Now, emerging adulthood encompasses the late teens and early 20s. The transition from early to middle adulthood, generally thought to occur around age 40, is even more arbitrary. The timing of biological milestones that are associated with middle age, such as menopause, or varies widely from one person to other. Thus, there is no clear physical boundary between early and middle adulthood, and social boundaries are rapidly changing. For instance, childbirth, once thought of almost exclusively as an early adulthood event, is becoming increasingly common among middle aged women. Likewise, late adulthood, though customarily described as beginning at age 60, is not distinguished by any biological or social events that clearly distinguish a middle aged adult from an older adult. Well, despite the difficulties involved in defining the various periods of development, these periods can still serve as a useful system for organizing the study of human development. So, to summarize, I can tell you the first 2 years after birth constitute infancy. Early childhood is defined as the years between ages 2 and 6, and ages 6 to 12 is the middle childhood. Adolescence is 12 to 18. Early adulthood is between 18 to 40, and 40 to 60 is middle adulthood, and 60 to the end of life is late adulthood. So, let me know, what do you think about it? So, now I'm going to talk about the nature and the nurture debate. It has been a long standing um, question in my head as well, that what exactly, how does nature and nurture differ, and how exactly they communicate with each other. So, some early scientists thought of change as resulting from either forces outside the person or forces inside the person. I mean, you would change either because of some inner force, or inner capabilities or capacities, or inner boundaries, or some external boundaries which are being forced on you. The debate about the relative contributions of biological processes and experiential factors to development is known as nature nurture debate. In struggling with this important issue, psychologists have moved away from either or approaches towards more subtle ways of looking at both types of influences. For example, the concept of inborn biases is based on the notion that children are born with tendencies to respond in certain ways. Some of these inborn biases are shared like by all the children in the world. Let me give an example. The sequence in which children acquire spoken language, single words precede two word sentences, and then three, then four, and so on, is virtually identical in all children, no matter what language they are speaking. Moreover, babies seem to be equipped with a set of behaviors that entice others to care for them, including crying, snuggling, and very soon after birth, smiling. They appear to be delighted when their efforts to arouse interest in others are successful. Other inborn biases may vary from one individual to other. Even in the early days of life, for example, some infants are relatively easy to soothe when they become distressed, while others are more difficult to manage. Whether these inborn patterns are coded in the genes, are created by variations in the prenatal environment, or arise through some combination of the two, the basic point is that a baby is not a blank slate at birth. Babies seem to start life prepared to seek out and react to particular kinds of experiences. Thinking on the nurture side, so that was nature, like with the inborn biases and not being a blank slate. Now we'll talk about nurture side. Nothing on the nurture side of the issue is also more complex than in the past. For example, modern developmentalists, or the scientists or the psychologists in these uh, days, have accepted the concept of internal models of experience. The key element of this concept is the idea that the effect of an experience depends not on its objective properties, but rather on the individual's interpretation, the meaning that the individual attaches to the experience. For instance, suppose a friend says, "Your new haircut looks good. It's a lot nicer when it's short like that." Your friend intends to pay you a compliment, but you also hear an implied criticism. "Your hair used to look awful." And your reactions, your feelings, and even your relationship with your friend are affected by how you interpret the comment, not by what your friend meant or by the objective qualities of the remark. You get my point? You see the whole nature and nurture interpretations, the difference in it? Have you ever come across something like that? So another point I want to discuss is there is this continuity and discontinuity concept, and there has always been a lot of debate on continuity and discontinuity. So this is another key issue in the study of human development. The question is whether age related change is primarily a matter of amount or degree, or of changes in types of kind. So the amount or degree is the continuity side of the debate, and the changes in type or kind is the discontinuity side. For example, generally speaking, do you have more or fewer friends than you did when you were in elementary school? Think about it. If you are like most other people, you have fewer friends. But do age differences in the number of friends people have really captured the difference between friendship in childhood and adulthood? Isn't it also true that friendship itself is different in childhood and adulthood? For example, mutual trust is a characteristic of adult and teen friendships, but is not a feature of friendship prior to age 10 or so. Thus, the continuous aspect of friendship is that people of all ages have peer relationships, and the discontinuous aspect of friendship is the characteristics of friendship itself vary by age. Another way of approaching this concept on continuity and discontinuity is to think of it in terms of quantitative and qualitative change. A quantitative change is a change in amount. For instance, children get taller as they get older, their heights increase, but the variable of height itself never changes. What I mean by this is, height changes continuously. It has continuity from one age to the next. Alternatively, a qualitative change is a change in characteristic kind or type. Now, for example, let's take our previous example. Puberty is a qualitative change. Prior to puberty, humans are incapable of reproduction. After puberty, they can reproduce. Therefore, post pubescent humans possess a characteristic that prepubescent humans do not: the capacity to reproduce. In other words, post pubescent and prepubescent humans are qualitatively different, and changes in the capacity to reproduce are discontinuous in nature. Well, later in life, another qualitative change in reproductive capacity occurs when women go through menopause and lose the capacity for reproduction. Well, particular significance to developmental theories like these is the idea that if development consists only of additions, that is, continuous quantitative change, then the concept of stages, qualitatively distinct periods of development, is not needed to explain it. However, if development involves reorganization or the emergence of whole new strategies, qualities, or skills, which is like the discontinuous qualitative change we just spoke about, then the concept of stages comes in picture. So there are a couple of types of changes, but it's been a long lecture. And hi Pauline, thank you, thanks for listening, thanks for the shout out. So yeah, it's an interesting topic to understand about yourself and to know and learn. And I will also talk about the three kinds of changes um, that relates to continuity and discontinuity principle that we just spoke about. So, but before that, we can take a 5 minutes break. It's been a long lecture, and I'll also come back. So we'll meet around in 5 or probably 10 minutes. Yeah, thank you, Christine. Thank you. You found this topic interesting. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll Let's take a 10 minutes break, and it's 54, 55 kind of minutes at my end. So we'll meet in 10 minutes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you guys for being here. See you. So yeah, so we are back on time. Hi, Louisa. I hope everybody got their snacks back. So we discussed a lot of things. We discussed about the continuity versus discontinuity debate and how it is related to whether age related change is primarily a matter of amount or degree, that is continuity side of the debate, or of changes in type or kind, that is the discontinuity side. And we spoke about the we gave the example of how we have fewer friends as we age, and how it is not a part of the continuity side of the debate. So let's move forward. I will take another session in which I'm going to summarize everything that we discussed in all these sessions later on. So now we are going to talk about the three kinds of age-related changes and how do they differ. Well, have you ever thought about the differences between taking your first steps and your first date? Clearly, both are related to age, but they represent fundamentally different kinds of change. Generally, developmental scientists think of each age related change as representing one of three categories. The first category, normative age graded changes. And these changes are defined as being universal. That is, they are common to every individual in a species and are linked to specific ages. Some universal changes, like a baby's first step, happen because we are all biological organisms subject to a genetically programmed maturing process. The infant who shifts from crawling to walking, and the older adult whose skin becomes progressively more wrinkled, are following a plan that is an intrinsic part of the physical body, most likely something in the genetic code itself. However, some changes are universal because of shared experiences. A social clock also shapes all or most of us lives into shared patterns of change. In each culture, the social clock or age norms define a sequence of normal life, such as the right time to go out on a first date, the appropriate timing of marriage and childbearing, and the expected time of retirement. Age norms can lead to ageism, prejudicial attitudes about older adults, which is same as sexism or racism in some cultures. Like in couple of cultures, I'm not going to name a specific culture right now, but I will talk in general terms. In couple of cultures, older adults very often perceived as incompetent. Many are denied opportunities to work because employers believe that they are incapable of carrying out required job functions. Thus, social expectations about the appropriate age for retirement work together with ageism to shape individual lives, resulting in a pattern in which most people retire or significantly reduce their working hours in later adulthood. Now, equally important as a source of variation in life experience are historical forces, which affect each generation somewhat differently. Such changes are called as normative history graded changes. Now, the ones that we just read were normative age graded changes, which are universal. And the next one that we are reading, like we are studying about, are the normative history graded changes. Now, social scientists use the word cohort to describe uh, to describe a basically group of individuals who are born within some fairly narrow span of years and thus share the same historical experiences at the same time in their lives. Within any given culture, successive cohorts may have quite different life experience. Like we generally hear about people like millennials and Gen X, Gen Z. All this is a part of normative history graded changes. The final one that we have to know about is the non normative changes, which result from unique, unshared events. One clearly unshared event in each person's life is conception. The combination of genes each individual receives at conception is unique. Thus, genetic differences are there, including physical characteristics such as the body type and hair color, as well as genetic disorders, even. They represent one category of individual differences. The characteristics influenced by both heredity and environment, such as intelligence and personality, constitute another class of individual differences. Other individual differences result from the timing of a developmental event. Child development theorists have adopted this as a concept called as critical period. The idea is that there may be specific periods in development when an organism is specifically sensitive to the presence or absence of some particular kind of experience. Most knowledge about critical period comes from the animal research. For baby ducks, for instance, the first 15 hours or so after hatching is a critical period for the development of a following response. Newly hatched ducklings will follow any duck or any other moving object that happens to be around them at the critical time. If any if nothing is moving at that critical time, they don't develop any following response at all. The broader concept of a sensitive period is more common in the study of human development. A sensitive period is a span of months or years during which a child may be particularly responsive to specific forms of experience or particularly influenced by their absence. For example, the period from 6 to 12 months of age may be a very sensitive period for the formation of parent infant attachment. In studies of adults, an important concept related to timing has been that of on time and off time events. The basic idea is that experiences occurring at the expected times for an individual's culture or cohort will pose fewer difficulties for the individual than will off time experiences. A very bad example right now, but yeah, for the sake of understanding, uh, therefore, like uh, being widowed at 30 is more likely to produce serious life disruption and distress than would being widowed at a later age, in the late adulthood. So, a, tip, a typical development is another kind of individual change. A typical or atypical development is also called as abnormal behavior, psychopathology, or maladaptive development. It refers to deviation from a typical or normal developmental pathway in a direction that is harmful to an individual. Examples of atypical development include intellectual disability, mental illness, and behavioral problems such as extreme aggressiveness in children and compulsive gambling in adults. So, there was this study done on the cohort effect uh, on children and adolescents in the Great Depression. So, like that research involved children and adolescents who grew up during the Great Depression of the 1930s. And it suggested that the same historical event can have different effects on adjacent cohorts. So it is a long study. I'll probably discuss this one later with you guys. But right now, I'm just giving you the basic concepts of how human development progressed over a period of time. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Christine, Pauline, Yoli, Janet. Yeah. Oh, you feel great, Janet? That's nice. Yeah, the other day you came, you were not feeling well. I'm so glad to see you and to know that you're feeling great. So, was it just viral or like, and how is your son? Like, he also had um fever, I guess. So, I hope he's feeling better as well. Good to see you here. So, now we will discuss about how does consideration of the context in which change occurs improve scientists' understanding of human development. To fully understand human development, we must understand the context in which it occurs. For instance, a child grows up in a number of separate but related contexts: her neighborhood and school, the occupation of her parents, and their life level of satisfaction in these occupations, her parents' relationship with each other and their own families, and so on. A good example of research that examines such a larger system of influences is given by Gerald Patterson's work on the origins of delinquency. And this scientist basically studied uh, a lot in the field of human development, and his studies show that parents who use poor discipline techniques and poor monitoring are more likely to have non compliant children. If once established, such a behavior pattern has repercussions in other areas of the child's life, leading to both rejection by peers and difficulty in school. These problems, in turn, are likely to push the young person towards delinquency. So, a pattern that began in the family is maintained and made worse by interaction with peers with the school system. However, we have to keep in mind that all the various contexts interact with each other and with the characteristics of the individuals who are developing within them. Along these lines, some of the scientists have found the concepts of vulnerability and resilience to be useful as well. And according to this, each child is born with certain vulnerabilities, such as a tendency towards emotional irritability or, say, alcoholism, a physical abnormality, an allergy, or whatever. Each child is also born with some protective factors such as high intelligence, good physical coordination, an easy temperament, or a lovely smile that tend to make her more resilient in the face of stress. So, these are the inborn tendencies that we just spoke about a while back. These vulnerabilities and protective factors then interact with the child's environment. So, the same environment can have quite different effects depending on the qualities the child brings to the interaction. The combination of a highly vulnerable child and a poor or unsupportive environment produces by far the most negative outcome. Either of these two negative conditions alone, a vulnerable child or a poor environment can be overcome. A resilient child in a poor environment may do quite well, since she can find and take advantage of all the stimulation and opportunities available. Similarly, a vulnerable child may do quite well in a highly supportive environment in which parents help the child overcome or cope with with her vulnerabilities. This is a double whammy. Being a vulnerable child in a poor environment leads to really poor outcomes for the child. The characteristics of the larger society in which a child's family and neighborhood are embedded matter as well. The term culture has no commonly agreed on definition, but in essence it describes some system of meaning and customs, including values, attitudes, laws, belief, and moral guideline, and even physical artifacts of various kinds, such as tools, form of dwelling, and the like. Furthermore, to be called a culture, a system of meanings and customs must be shared by some identifiable group, whether that group is a subsection of some population or a larger unit, and must be transmitted from one generation of that group to the next. Culture shapes not only the development of individuals but also ideas about what normal development is. For example, researchers interested in middle and the late adulthood often study and retirement. Middle is 40 to 60 and late is beyond 60. Why people retire, how retirement affects their health, and so on. But their findings do not apply to older adults in non industrialized cultures, where adults gradually shift from one kind of work to another as they get older rather than give up work altogether and enter a new phase of life called retirement. Consequently, developmentalists, these are the scientists, must be aware that retirement related phenomena do not constitute universal changes. Instead, they represent developmental experiences that are culturally specific. Now, one final aspect of this context that I want to discuss is within which an individual's development occurs involves gender. Two individuals can be quite similar with regard to their individual characteristics and the environment within which they grow up. However, if one is female and the other is male, they will experience the interaction between their characteristics and the environment differently. For example, let me tell you, okay, the effects of the earliness or lateness with which a child goes through puberty depends on gender. Thus, early and late puberty have different meanings for boys and girls. So, here once again, we understand the concept of context in which change occurs in humans. So, next time, what is the time right now? It's 1:23. I think we can next time we can take up what are the goals of the psychologists and the scientists who study human development, and what are the methods that they use, and what are the observations they make, how do they make the observations, why do they make those observations, what is the correlation and the causation between these observations at home vis-a-vis outside home. So, um, and what are the pros and cons of these observations, and what are kind of observations are there, like cross sectional, longitudinal, sequential, and how do they differ, and how does it affect us as people and others as people outside our family. So, interesting topic, interesting study. So I hope you found it useful to learn about yourself and know that though we are born with whatever innate, thank you for the hearts. Though we are born with the innate, yeah, sure, Pauline, thank you. I'm glad it was informative. That we are born with certain DNA makeup, but it is possible to change it with repetitive positive corrections. So I will talk a lot more about, and that is where nature nurture discussion and debate happens. That you are born with a set of characteristics, but is it possible to develop B? Or for example, you are born with an A set of characteristics which you don't require. Is it possible to dim it down and highlight the B set of characteristics? So it's an excellent topic to know about and to learn, so that you can then even guide others as well, with positive connotation in it. Like people say that it's never going to happen, or give adamant statements, or things like this will never happen. So this is that even science has proved this, that there is nothing like this can never happen. Even that your whole DNA makeup can change if you give that positive correction to it. So there is nothing like this cannot happen. Even a lot of things can happen with just positive or negative associations. So great topic to know. Think positive and be positive, learn from each other, explain things that you know to others, learn from others, make others learn from you, increase your understanding every day, so that you can feel better in yourself. Yeah, sure. You're most welcome, Christine. The up-to-date information is news. Yeah. Yeah, of course. If you want to know more about it, you can read about human development, the lifespan development, and you will know that science has also proved that with positivity around you, with positive changes around you, you can even change the whole makeup in your body, like the whole makeup of your DNA in your body. We do meditation for what? For people who don't do meditation, who have no faith in it, they will never be able to learn or do it, because to be able to know or do something, you need to have that faith in it, right? But you know about it, you guys know about it. You sit in a meditative pose, you do some meditation, and then you go into some trance altogether, wherein you feel good about it, right? So this is all what is being proved through science. So the spiritualism that we practice through meditation, or the calmness that we feel through meditation, is basically a part of this science that we are studying. That so I'm sure that it's going to help you learn more, think a little more about what you want to know more, and why you are doing what you are doing. So yeah. If you found this session useful, then please consider donating, so that I can come up with more topics and research on them and bring it to you more often. So if you can, then please do it. It'll be great. So if you have any questions, then please let me know. We also have a circle. You can join in there and post your questions or comments, or some anything that you feel like sharing. So that would be great. Thank you. Thank you for the hearts. So many welcomes. Sure, sure, Jay. You're welcome. Most welcome. So it's very hot at my place here. It's like 106 Fahrenheit, and my air conditioning is on since yesterday, like the whole time. So I'm not sure where are you guys. Is it hot at your end as well? I think it's I don't know, something happening in climate. Very sad to look at it. I got a couple of plans, and I plan to do some gardening tomorrow in my garden and just grow some plants and trees and some grass. It's just missing quite a. I'm just missing a big patch of grass in my backyard. So great, great to see you guys here. I'm glad that the conversation was useful, and thanks for participating, everybody. Jay, Kristen, Pauline, Janet, and Louisa, Pauline, Christine, Yoli. Thanks for participating, and I hope to see you guys again. We also have yoga classes, yoga with dumbbells, and general yoga. I think I see many of you guys coming in my classes, and so we meet there, chit chat, talk, and we learn new things about spiritualism. Today we were learning more on science, but then you see how everything is connected. So thank you for the hearts. So yeah, it's great to see you, and I hope to see you guys again. So till then, keep smiling and feel happy about the day, every day, the things that you know, and try to read some part of newspaper every day. I mean, I keep telling this to my siblings as well. They listen to me sometimes, sometimes they don't. But yeah, read the newspaper section, and sometimes if you don't understand, just stick to learning about one news that you have read, and it will really open up your perspectives towards things. And when you know so much, it's probably for a lot of times you will not know everything which is interrelated, but then when you know so much which is not interrelated, you will be able to have that a kind of wisdom, a kind of good perception about things before they would occur, and it will really benefit you in longer term. So great to see you, everybody, and I hope to see you again. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for that. So thank you. So I hope to see you guys again. So till then, keep smiling, keep working hard, go for a jog. Okay. Bye bye. Take care.